While the Toronto Raptors didn't end up making a blockbuster trade over the past week, they did make a few moves and brought in some recognizable names from around the NBA, both on the court as well as in the front office. So we'll discuss all the moves that the Toronto Raptors have made and see what impact they could potentially have on the roster and on the team just going forward. So without further ado, let's jump into the first name, the guy that's in the thumbnail, the guy that's probably most recognizable to a lot of Toronto Raptors fans, and it's Denzel Valentine. Now, Denzel Valentine was an up-and-coming prospect for the Chicago Bulls during an era where I'm sure a lot of Raptors fans remember the Chicago Bulls really had the Toronto Raptors number. I mean, there was a stretch, there was years where the Toronto Raptors just could not get a W against the Chicago Bulls. The Doug McDermotts of the world, the Tony Snells, lots of throwback names there, but basically the Chicago Bulls always just had these random role players pop off against the Raptors, and Denzel Valentine was one of those pieces. I remember there was a big sort of, I don't want to say cult, but a group of Raptors fans that really wanted the Raptors to acquire Denzel Valentine. Well, this week, it actually ended up happening as Blake Murphy essentially reported that we've acquired the rights to Denzel Valentine for the Raptors 905. Now, what happened to Denzel Valentine? Because, again, he was a piece that had a lot of promise, and I probably should have brought up the meme, but there's a meme of him after this sort of turning point, it feels like, in his career, where he hoisted up a deep three and the Bulls end up losing a game, right? We haven't really heard much from Denzel Valentine here at this point, and looking at his stats, the last season he was actually in the NBA. He played for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Utah Jazz, just a few games here and there, right? It was that 2021-2022 season, but he has had some big years. He's dealt with some injuries. His best season was in 2017-2018, where he averaged 10 points per game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and this is around the era where the Denzel Valentine sort of hype wagon, where people got really excited about him potentially being a solid player in the NBA. Again, he's a sort of bigger wing. He's just this high IQ basketball player. He can kind of shoot the three. He's just sort of a jack of all trades. He's just a solid guy on the wing that has NBA experience. And now, he's played for the Sydney Kings now at this point. He's bounced around the G League, playing for Maine and these types of things. And maybe with the Raptors acquiring his G League rights, he's not going to be a big star, a big name. There's going to be a lot of sort of steps he's going to need to take to really establish himself back in the NBA. However, if the Toronto Raptors do view him as a guy that could potentially get back to, his rookie contract sort of form, early on in his career, he would be an interesting piece. Because as I mentioned, he's had some big games, and yes, there are some memeable moments in his career, and, things definitely haven't worked out for him in the NBA fully. Hasn't found his footing with the team following the Chicago Bulls. One of those guys in the G League you just don't mind having around, because if they take that step, if they get back into their full form, again, he's dealt with some injuries over the course of his career, which hampered his ability to grow into the player a lot of people were expecting him to go into. He gets healthy, things sort of work out. Maybe he could be an interesting piece for the Toronto Raptors. I'm not going to say that there's a guarantee he's going to make the roster, he's going to be on the team for upcoming seasons. However, it is a cool name to have sort of in your organization, in your sort of team atmosphere. So let me know what you guys think about the acquisition of Denzel Valentine in the comment section below. Next thing we're taking a look at is the Raptors waiving a prospect, and this one is a move I found interesting, just how they've handled this entire situation. As Kevin Obanor, we made a video on him earlier in the summer, was a prospect that I was pretty intrigued by. Athlete, younger, 24 years old, balls out, but basically he was signed to an Exhibit 10 contract. However, he ended up getting waived by the Toronto Raptors, so just 3 days or a few days ahead of their training camp sort of beginning. And it's interesting because Obanor was a guy I was really excited to see in Summer League. However, he only got 1 game in Summer League, didn't score, only played about 9 minutes, and we just didn't see a lot of Kevin Obanor, even though he was an interesting piece that sort of could have brought in, again, you're looking at Exhibit 10 players, you're looking at the potential, you're looking at the value that they could provide, and Obanor was a piece that I would have liked to see at least get an opportunity, just get the eye test, in a Toronto Raptors uniform, see how he looks, and 9 minutes isn't really going to show that, but interesting, he didn't get that much run during Summer League. However, he is out, and now we've also made a move. We also brought in a piece as the Raptors made a trade for another big name in the G League. They brought in another guy, and a lot of, not just Raptors fans, but NBA fans in general recognize the name of Thon Maker. Apparently the Raptors are interested in him early on in his career on draft night, and then Matur Maker played for Orangeville Prep along with Thon, so there's a Canadian connection there, but They have another brother that less people sort of know about, as basically news has come out that the Toronto Raptors have acquired the rights to Makur for the rights to Ryan Hawkins and a future first round pick. And Makur is obviously lesser known than Matur as well as Thon Maker, and Ryan Hawkins was a piece that was interesting, right? He was an interesting guy that knocked down some threes, spaced the floor for the Raptors 905. He showed out, he had an opportunity early in the season a couple years ago, or last year, sorry, and during a preseason, knocked down some threes and stuff. And some Raptors fans are hoping Ryan Hawkins would actually make the rosters. This team desperately needs shooting. We desperately need a guy to sort of come out here and space the floor. Now, hopefully, Grady Dick, McDaniels, a few pieces off the bench now will be able to do that. A healthy Otto Porter Jr., but Ryan Hawkins was a little bit of a fan favorite for the Raptors 905, and during his preseason stints, liked what he could do, right? Ryan Hawkins is an interesting piece, but Makur Maker is a guy, again, relate to Thon, 6'10", in the G League last season for the Go-Go. Oh, I don't have his stats pulled up there, but basically, Makur Maker, about 7 points, 5 rebounds, nothing too crazy. He's not setting the G League on fire, but does have those intangibles, right? The one thing about the Makers, they're built to play basketball. They're long, they're athletic. So, in the Raptors 905 system, potentially develop into a guy that could be in the NBA, could be a prospect or something along those lines. It could be something to be seen. So, interesting sort of acquisition made there. But the final one that brings back some nostalgia for me specifically is the Raptors hire a former Toronto Raptor, but for a front office scouting role. As there's a name that I'm not sure a lot of Raptors fans will remember, but there is a moment where you'll definitely remember, and it's Ben Uzoh. So basically, Josh Luenberg revealed the Raptors have hired Ben Uzoh as a pro scout. Uzoh spent last year with the team as a part of the NBA's Future Basketball Operations Starts program, and they also promoted Chad Sanders, director of scouting, Luke Wynn, and Ryan Malik to head of athletic trainer. So they're making some stuff happen in the front office. Not a lot of familiar names, but Ben Uzoh, you might recognize him. He's there the season we wore the camo jerseys for the Toronto Raptors, but there was one infamous game that had me extremely high on both Ben Uzoh as well as Solomon Alabi, or Alabi, I can't remember the pronunciation of his last name, but during the final game of this season, I think it was the 2012-2013 season, the Raptors were out of the mix, they were out of it, but they played a game against the New Jersey Nets, against Chris Humphries, against the whole crew, and it was a wild game. It was insane. The Raptors are resting most of their key players, and looking at the box score for this one to pull it up, right, Ben Uzoh, Allen Anderson, Ed Davis, James Johnson, Jamal Magloire were all starters in this game, and then Gary Forbes and Solomon Alabi were in this game. And I remember Ben Uzoh hit the triple-double for the Toronto Raptors, 12 points, 11 rebounds, 12 assists, 4 steals for the team. And then Solomon Alabi was 11 points and 19 rebounds and 3 blocks. And this was the last game of the season. Also, Ed Davis putting up some numbers there as well. But basically, I remember going into the offseason, we had this one game. Obviously, Ben Uzoh, Solomon Alabi. And Alabi was a guy that I know I wanted to see get more run, as the Raptors could have used more help at the center position. He was a very tall man, always a presence there on the bench for the Toronto Raptors, and basically, he will recall him for a lobby to get minutes, as well as Ben Uzoh. Well, when he saw a triple-double from Ben Uzoh, he was built like Russell Westbrook, so to speak. Very strong man, athletic build, for the point guard spot. People wanted to see this man get some run, get some opportunity, but it never really happened. So I remember going into that offseason being like, hey, they get an opportunity, putting up triple doubles. I'll be putting up 19 boards. Give this man some run. Give these guys some run. We never saw it happen, and 11-year-old me, 10-year-old me is still mad about it, but it is what it is. It's nice to see Ben Uzoh back. Get that nostalgic moment here when I saw that tweet. But lots of sort of minor moves being made by Masai Ujiri in the front office heading into training camp. We'll see if another Exhibit 10 player does end up getting signed, over the next sort of couple days before training camp starts. But let me know what you guys think about these moves. What do you think about the Toronto Raptors sort of roster heading into the season? You guys have the best to make it star. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.